for silence for the victims of last weekend's tragic events. Well, thank you. One moment of silence. Thank you. You can be seated. Today's meeting is going to be lacking some liquid beverages that I think should go along with the theme. But the lugubrious words of our inspirational speaker this morning should give us the proper jolt we need to get going here in the morning. Please feel free to get a cup of coffee. I'm going to go ahead and turn the lectern over to our inspirational message this morning, Dave Licata, everyone. Dave Licata.
So set him up, Joe. I got a little story I think you should know. We're drinking, my friend, to the end of a brief episode. Make it one more for my baby and one more for the road. I want to inspire you this morning to go back to that tavern of your memory where you perhaps you spent your youth or your misspent youth. And remember the fond memories and the harsh lessons of the corner bar. Thank you.
Lessons at the corner bar. I had a few of those. Basically, how to get out of a fight, not into one. Just so that everyone online and everyone here knows every person that we have in attendance. Here in the room is Sylvia Baptiste, Jackie Kenny, Lynn Thornton, Carol Holstead, Steve Smith, Joe Roaring, Dave Licata, Mike Licata, Beth Banks, Katie Orr, myself, Thomas Heldwine, and Marty Johnson. I see we have a guest.
We have a guest. He had reached out to Jill online, and this is Mike Hayes. Everyone, welcome.
Mike Hayes. Okay, thank you.
Did you introduce John?
No, I did not either. Since
He is obviously invited from Canada.
he's from Canada, and I heard he's a Toastmaster. All right, for our guests, we're gonna ask, let's let you know ahead of time, after watching our meeting, just to say a few words at the end of the meeting. So you're good with that? Mike online, are you okay with that? Thumbs up? John, sorry. Thumbs up, all right. Also online, as everyone here can see, and everyone on Zoom can see, so it's kind of silly reading it out, but we had Mark Campos, Margot Bittner, Dave Jones, Eric Schneider. Am I missing anyone that jumped in? Oh,
There's Mike Florio and Jason.
Mike Florio and Jason, okay. Well, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you. I know that we tend to run long, so I am not going to waste any time in introducing our Toastmaster for today. Our Toastmaster for today is Mark Campos, everyone. Mark Campos.
Thank you, Mr. President, fellow Toastmasters. Good morning, and a special good morning to our guests. Welcome to the Toastmasters Club, where everybody knows your name. The theme today is bars. I thought we could have fun with this particular theme, but before we get into it, we have to start with some housekeeping. I would like to thank the club members. There was a flurry of late activity last night with members signing up for roles. Thank you very much for that, as well as the speakers populating their project details and speech titles, so much appreciated. However, we do have one remaining gap. I am looking for a tech and gesture master. Would anyone care to volunteer?
I don't know if you can. Oh, thanks, Dave.
I'm sorry, was
She'll
that
take that job, Mark. That's a Beth. We'll take on that job.
Beth will take that job. Thank you very much. All right, let's go. So the theme today is bars. And simply stated, a bar is an establishment that serves all kinds of alcohol. We also may call them saloons, taverns, pubs, clubs, gin mills, watering holes, and I'm sure some of you probably could have some of your own expressions that you use for these types of places. But in researching these, what I found is that the bar goes all the way back to ancient Greece and ancient Rome. And an interesting tidbit that I found is that in America, taverns were generally built before churches in communities, which tells you what our priority system is like in America. But they come in all shapes and sizes and all kinds of specialties, whether it be specializing in the types of beverages they serve, the entertainment they have, the clientele they cater to, basically anything that you're looking for. So with that, I'd like to propose a toast. Here is to your favorite bar. Cheers. And as you speak today, I would like you to share what your favorite bar is. At this point, I'd like to introduce the job holders. We'll start with our word master, Mike Florio. Mike.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests. I'd have to say, well, one of my favorite bars is torn down now. That's how long ago it's been since I've been kind of frequenting bars. But After Dark was always one of my favorites. It had music, pool table, and lots of fun. And then if you really wanted to go at it hard, you went to the lounge afterwards, which was just on the border of Erie, and they stayed open till 5 a.m. So you could go really rugged if you wanted to. But anyway, I digress. The word of the day today is imbibe. I thought that was kind of appropriate. Now, imbibe or imbibed or imbibing is typically used as to consume liquids by drinking, basically alcohol. He imbibed great quantities of iced tea, we'll say. But it also can mean absorbed or soaked up as water, light, or heat. Plants imbibe moisture into the soil, or to take or to receive into the mind, as known as knowledge, ideas, or light. To imbibe a sermon or imbibe a Toastmasters meeting. So imbibe has a few other uses. So today, remember, please do use it as on table topics and as much as possible. Imbibe. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mike. So fellow Toastmasters, please be sure to use the word imbibe at any opportunity you have during the meeting. This next job holder I must commend for signing up for not just one job, but 2 jobs. His first job is as a master, Marty Johnston. Marty.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests Mike and John, correct? As our master, I'll be carefully, testing my listening skills and making note of any uses of pauses, inappropriate pauses, ahs, ums, ers. And the purpose for our guest for that is to, to be cognizant of the fact that you're using ahs, ums, ers, and pregnant pauses in your speech. And each week as we meet, whenever you say, we make note of that and report at the end of the meeting. That way you're cognizant of the fact that you're using it and you strive to reduce the number of times you use it. That's the purpose. Mr. Toastmaster, would you like me to continue with my second role as just?
Sure,
Okay.
Marty, please
Okay.
do so.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Some of you from Lockport, if you've ever driven down Transit Road, actually Transit Road where it meets Transit Street, where Transit Street meets Niagara Street, there's an old bar. It's called the Niagara Hotel. And years ago, believe it or not, I think I was there a couple times, if I remember correctly. And excuse me, there's a sign on the door, or on the window, I should say, and it says, free advice, free advice. Can you imagine that? Free advice. So I went in there, not for free advice, but, excuse me, because I knew some people that were playing in a band on Saturday night. And I went in, and I have this t-shirt that I must put on because it's so appropriate for today's meeting.
Come on.
And this is also my prop, or my part of my prop. So this t-shirt, a family member got for me. And it says, so this Irishman walks out of a bar. No, really, it can happen. And I believe the reason that I walked out of the bar, it could have been because I didn't take the free advice that was given. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster. Before I walk away, thank you, Tom. Before I walk away, I just wanted to say my favorite bar, if you will, is in Madison, Indiana. I just found it this weekend at my godfather's memorial service, a community memorial service, and it's called Thomas Family Winery. And I did imbibe in some wine tasting. It was delicious. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster, Mr. President. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Toastmaster Mark, thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Our grammarian this morning is Thomas Heldwine. Thomas.
Thank you. As grammarian, I'll be looking for unique uses of the English language. I will also be attempting to discern misuses of the English language, which I have never been formally taught, but have learned a lot in this group. My favorite place to imbibe, it also does not exist. It was a bar called the Icon. And it wasn't because they had 2 for 1 night, or the second floor was a mixture of 2 different food locations and a free art gallery for the students of UB and Buff State, or that the 3rd floor was heavy metal and or reggae, depending on what night you went. It's because that's where I met my wife. So that was my favorite place to go and vibe Jack and Coke or Captain Morgan's and Coke. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Thomas. Our quote master this morning is Dr. Gerald Stevens.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and our guests. As you all know, I have a long history of drinking in bars. I did the Year of the Beer tour, which is in 1 year. I went to 2 counties worth of breweries, every single one of them. So I've experienced a few bars, and I lived in New Orleans. So my doctor needs to be consulted. So my favorite bar would have to be Deja Vu in New Orleans, where I worked for a little bit during Mardi Gras. And I remember when I was there that the whole bar was singing Friends in Low Places all at once. About 100 people all doing this. It was pretty cool. But to the quotes about imbibing in this case. 1 tequila, 2 tequila, 3 tequila, 4. George Carlin. I drink to make people more interesting. Ernest Hemingway. And I believe this quote is attributed to the wrong person, but I will give it 2 people. Candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker. I think it's Mae West. but they said Ogden Nashir, so. So thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens. Our timer this morning is Sylvia Baptiste. Sylvia.
Morning. Unfortunately, the bar that I grew up with is closed too. Daddy's out in Niagara Falls. And it wasn't because I met my husband there, because they allowed us to go in at age 16. 18 was drinking, so it's 16. And my husband said all the times he was late for high school, or going to school, he blamed it in Erie County because the bars were open to 5 o'clock. So, as timer, we know the importance of our time. And we'll have table topics, which will be 1.5 to 2 minutes. Speakers, most of them, not unless they tell me differently, 5 to 7 minutes. And you'll see a green light at 5, yellow at 6, and 7 at red. Wrap it up with a 30-second buffer, right? Okay. And then, of course, our evaluators, 1.5 to 2 minutes on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Our tech and gesture master this morning is Beth Banks. Beth.
I know you called me up here right after Sylvia, so I didn't have to move the microphone, right? Thank you. I appreciate that. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I am your tech and gesture master. We kind of pushed those together a while ago. I will be watching for exceptional uses of gestures. Are you just standing there nervous, like sometimes or maybe you talk with your hands a lot? And also watching out for the technology, which is always a challenge. I will say that in the summer, my husband and I do like to imbibe at the Sunset Bar and Grill because they have open seating out on the deck, and they also sometimes have music. But yes, one of my favorite is also closed. We used to go to Descenso's. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Our quiz master this morning is our club mom, Jackie Kenny. Jackie.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I will be listening carefully for some interesting facts and figures, and will quiz you at the end. And my favorite bar is any pub in Ireland where I found out the bartender can make a wonderful pot of tea for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Last but not least, our general evaluator this morning is Michael Licata. Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests this morning. My job as general evaluator is to evaluate the Toastmaster, the evaluators of the speakers, and the overall tone of the meeting. And honestly, this morning, my favorite bar is every bar where I know the bartender or my friends know the bartender, because that usually means I drink severely discounted, mostly free, which right now includes Bison's games, Sabres games, and the penalty box here in town. So that is my favorite bar, is wherever you know the right people, so you drink for severely discounted prices. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Michael. It is duly noted that I need to hang out with you and your friends, especially at the sporting events where the beers are very expensive. At this point, it is time for us to test our skills speaking extemporaneously. I would like to introduce our table topics master, Steve Smith. Steve.
Thank you. Now, I don't know about you, but I did more drinking when I was younger than I do right now. And the bars that I used to hang out with aren't there anymore, as a lot of us have said. There used to be 3 bars in Wilson. We had the Wilson House on the end of town, you had the Hub in the middle, and you had Jeans. Jeans and the Hub were side by side. That's where I usually hung out at those 2 bars. Because the Wilson House was where the older people with more money hang out because the drinks were more pricey. Now the Hub was sold, it changed to the Firehouse, and now it's just sitting there as an empty building. Jeans the same way. That's just sitting there as an empty building. But that doesn't matter to me too much because I don't hang out bars anymore much. So I have a very short list of people to choose today. And I see right off the bat, Tracy doesn't have a job. So you have any drinking stories from your younger days, George, or not? You know,
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. That is such an unfair question. Of course. Of course, I've never imbibed in those drinks. When I was in college, there was only fraternity. There was actually, Margot might know these. I went to school in Troy, New York. There was Elda's. They had half price or 50-cent, 25-cent wings. I don't even know how much they were. It was so long ago. But they had cheap wings and they had half price Genesee beer. Not even Genesee, it was another type of beer. It was still overpriced. So we would go there every Wednesday night for that. And I didn't even like beer, but of course I would imbibe in all of those. There was fraternity houses there, so there was parties every single weekend. We did that. And at my school, we weren't allowed to have sororities, but we had language houses. And I lived in the Spanish house, so we had our parties. So those were the best parties, of course. We would invite there was 2 schools in Troy, New York, RPI and Russell Sage College. And if you came because it was an all-girls school, everybody at RPI would come to Russell Sage College for our parties. So they were the best parties. They also had a bar that had beers of the world, which was kind of neat because you would go in and get a passport and you could try every single beer and you would work your way around the world. So that was a lot of fun. I have to tell you now, I don't really drink beer anymore. So I've grown up. I drink more wine now. And the best place is, of course, my employer, Margin Manor. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
thank you. Now, she brought up an interesting topic. Not only do you drink, but what do you drink? Now, when I had a physical years ago, when I went to college, the doctor said, do you drink? Yeah. He says, beer, wine, liquor? I said, yes. Now, also, if anyone here is a Lion, you know, the official drink of the Lions Club is the Manhattan. Now, you could take a whole session just describing how to make the perfect Manhattan. But that leads me to my next question. I think, is Eric there? I thought I saw him online. Is he handy?
In the middle of working or if he's handy?
No, Eric.
John Argus.
Would John, our guest, like to talk?
Sure, throw me a drink.
Yeah. Now, the question is, what is your favorite drink?
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, yes. Oh, favorite. Oh, I'm sorry. There was a time when I tried, actually, way back when, technically high school, I tried draft beer and it worked until it didn't. And I lost the taste of draft beer. So when I went to university / college, I was doing screwdrivers, rum and coke, punch, and basically anything that wasn't beer until I built up my tolerances again. I am a fan of craft beers, so I have a wall almost of various bottles I've collected over the last couple of years. But for me, I think the only thing that I'm not too fond of to imbibe in is red wine, only because I find some red wines give me a headache. But other than that, I'm an equal opportunity employer. I'm not going to say no to a drink because it's not the drink that I'm concerned about. It's the situation, the experience, the camaraderie. We as humans shared mead and whatever the case may be for thousands of years to tell stories. So a drink is a drink, whether it's alcoholic or not, simply because it still brings us together in a social atmosphere. And who am I to go against social parameters? Back to you, Mr. Tabletop Master.
Thank you. Now that put me in mind of another interesting story. Many of you know Dennis Gauda. Yeah. Well, we happened to be in a bar, and I was ordering some IPA or something, and he looked at me and he said, "Smitty, is there any beer you won't drink?" And I said, "No." But not everybody drinks, and not everybody drinks in bars. So I see Jason's on today. Is he handy?
Yeah, I'm here, yeah.
Ah, good. The question is, do you drink or not? And if so, do you go out to drink or do you drink at home?
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely I drink, and I'm already 25 years old, and a lot of college students, they are, under the 21, and they also drink, and we usually drink, sometimes at a bar and with my friends, and watch some football games or basketball games, and sometimes we drink at home. Maybe it's Friday, and we will watch some movies, and and really drink a lot of imbibe, a lot of alcohol, and sometimes we drink beers, but most of the time we buy a lot of bourbon whiskey, and some I think that called vodka. Yeah. But after I started to doing my master's degree, and if you drink alcohol, it makes you headache, and sometimes you can remember a lot of things. So and after I doing my master's degree, I don't drink alcohol no more. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, can I get a Wordmaster's report?
Very entertaining, let me tell you. I want to party with some of these people. Anyway, all of our table topics contestants use the word imbibe. Tracy used it twice, John once, Jason once, and it looks like imbibe is doing very well. Marty used it, Thomas used it, Gerald used it, Beth used it. So everyone understands the usage of that word. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Can I get a timer's report?
Three of our table topics contestants qualified: Tracy at 1.50, John at 1.52, and Jason at 1.45.
Thank you. I'll turn the meeting back over to our Toastmaster. Cheers.
Thank you, Steve. So fellow Toastmasters, my favorite bar, as most of the members know, or really all the members of the club know, but our guests don't know, I'm originally from Queens, New York. And if you've ever watched the television show, The King of Queens, they hang out at a bar called Cooper's Ale House. Well, Cooper's was a real place, and it was a place that we used to frequent. In the early 90s, we lived not too far from the bar, and it was an awesome place. It was big, it had a great atmosphere. There was a room in the back with terrific food. There was a 10-cent wing night on Tuesdays. This is going back 30 years ago. And the other thing that made it so fun was the bartenders. So this may be more of a New York thing, because when I talk to people from here and other areas, they don't really know what I'm talking about, but they were great at what we called the buyback. Do you guys know what a buyback is? Where, say, every third round or so, the bartender would basically give you the drinks for free. Now, again, this is a different time. Technology isn't what it was, it isn't what it is now, or wasn't what it is now. And the inventory controls weren't that strong, but they basically give you a round for free. You'd feel like you're scoring big time, but then of course you'd tip the bartender double or triple what you otherwise would have. So I guess everybody wins except the house. And the other thing that made that place fun is that a friend of mine, we used to call him Big Ed, and he was big, 6'5", 300 pounds. He was friends with all the bartenders. And when Big Ed was at the bar, he drank for free. And when you were with Big Ed at the bar, you drank for free. So Mike, I had one friend like that, but obviously you have a lot more than I do. With that, let's move on to the speaking portion of the meeting. Introducing our first speaker, Jill Roaring, will be Carol Ann Halstead. Carol.
The place I used to imbibe at in my 20s was the bakery in Niagara Falls. And my limit is definitely 2 drinks. Now, my husband is a social member of the Navy Marine Club, so that's where, every couple weekends we'll stop in. I usually just have 1 drink because I have many stories of when I had more than 2 drinks. Jill today is working on the introduction to Toastmaster mentoring. And her purpose is to define how Toastmasters envisions mentoring and to share some aspect of previous experience as a protege. Her speech is 5 to 7 minutes. Mr. Toastmaster, do you have her title?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Carol. Fellow Toastmasters, please join me in welcoming Jill Roaring with "A Few Years Ago." A few years ago, Jill Roaring.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Before you start timing, my favorite bar, there's probably been different ones as my years have gone by. Let's face it, we've all grown and changed. When I was in college, I went to a college called Morrisville, which is a little hick town, you might say. Definitely a college town. It pretty much rolls up its doors during the summer. But during the school year, there was about 4 bars. College students really didn't go to one at all because it was a hoity-toity restaurant. And then the next one in line was a place called The Place, which was the neighborhood dive. I mean, it classified as a dive all the way. And then there was the CVI, the Cherry Valley Inn, and the Fort. And of course, way off in the back end of campus was the campus pub known as the Last Resort, which that was a good name for it. But I would have to say my favorite place of all of them was the one called the Place, the neighborhood dive. And a group of us went there Friday afternoons for happy hour. They had quarter draft beers, $1.75 pitchers. I didn't drink beer. Even then, I just never had a taste for beer. So I had the 75-cent mixed drinks. And we played quarters, where you bounce the quarter into the drink, and if you get the quarter in, you have to drink it. And needless to say, there was plenty of imbibing then. And we would rush back to the campus snack bar so we could use our meal card before 8 o'clock. And I wonder how well they understood us when we were ordering our meal. All right, to my speech. A few years ago, in 2012, I had been through quite a trauma. 2011, I lost my husband. 2012, I lost my business. But in the process of all that, I did meet Steve. Well, I didn't meet Steve. I knew Steve a long time, but we started going out. Steve introduced me to his likes, astronomy, and Toastmasters. Eventually, I started coming to the Toastmasters meetings with him. And as I've been told numerous times, I was the longest term guest they have ever had. And I've been roundly criticized for not joining earlier. But I had a goal once I decided to join, that I wasn't going to join until we started the new program, because there was no sense in me starting one for nothing. Not that I am progressing very rapidly in the new one anyhow. But as to being a mentor or a protege, I can't say that I've ever really felt like I was one. I haven't been in the typical business where somebody took me under their wing and said, here, do this for us. Do this for your career, it'll make you better. But I have to honestly say, when I came to Toastmaster meetings, whether they were here or one of the many other ones that I went to with Steve, because at the time he was an area director. In fact, one of the members from another club was actually trying to get started a advanced club. We even went to that one a few times, and I got called on for table topics. I can always say that Toastmasters was the most welcoming and warming and inviting environment that I've ever been in. And I have to say, thank you, AM Lockport, for that. Because I feel like I am your protege. Anybody who was at the board of directors meeting last night knows I didn't even have a topic for my speech yet. As of 7 o'clock last night. I was leaning in two different speech categories, and this one was, what am I going to do with it? And then all of a sudden it struck me that AM Lockport has been my mentor. You've helped me out in so many ways. I can't begin to thank AM Lockport for what you have done for me, with me, and to me over the last 10 years, 9 years, because I don't think I started coming with Steve right away. It did take me a while to join, obviously. And I was the longest guest you'd ever had, as Dave points out numerous times. Constructive criticism has been such an important part of this. And in a deeply moving way, I can't thank AM Lockport for what it's done for me. A couple years ago, I was the MC of a meeting in the village of Wilson about parks. And I knew there was going to be a little bit of controversy in some of what came out. But I wasn't scared to be the MC. I knew what to do. And I wasn't even a Toastmaster yet then. So how much had you given me already then at that point? I hope that my experience here keeps on for as long as I can say, because I enjoy this. And I did not plan on this specifically for Mike today. Although it was nice that you showed up. I wasn't sure if you would. We were having some technical problems last night. It was, oh no, if he shows up on Zoom tomorrow. But thank you, AM Lockport. You are here in my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. A reminder to all the Toastmasters, especially those in the room where it's a little bit easier, on the bottom, as part of your ballots, you have the slips that you can provide feedback to the speakers, so please do so. Our second speaker this morning is Len Thornton, and he will be introduced by his evaluator, David Jones. David.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Usually when I invite, I go to a restaurant bar. I'm not one to go to bars. I just go to restaurants and sit at the bars. But this is actually my favorite place to drink at home because it's much cheaper. Now, what I found out when I moved from Miami to North Carolina was we're part of the Bible Belt and we are under the Alcohol Beverage Commission. Therefore, in a city like Charlotte, where I live, which is large, we might have 6 liquor stores, which there's not. Miami, there's one in every corner. I'm assuming New York too, but in North Carolina, they decide where you can drink and how much you can drink by limiting the stores available. Now, this morning, we have Len Thornton giving us a speech. It is from Dynamic Leadership Level 1 Research and Presenting, and it is from 5 to 7 minutes. Mr. Toastmaster, do you have the title of this speech?
Yes, I do. Thank you, David. Fellow Toastmasters, please join me in welcoming Len Thornton with Body Language. Body Language, Len Thornton.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests this morning. First off, my favorite bar growing up was Cassidy's at Main and Amherst Street in Buffalo. It's probably the first bar I really started drinking at, close to when it was legal. You could get fake IDs easy then. And when the bouncers are on the football team at your school and let you in, no questions asked, it's tempting. So I do imbibe. We'll get that word out of the way right away. Not as much as I used to. Now I normally peruse the headlines of Hollywood goings on casually. I don't really put a lot of stake in those stories or invest a lot of time, especially the Kardashians. When I hear that word, I tune right out. I do not want to hear anything about celebrities who are famous for being famous. It just, I don't understand that. It's quite annoying. But I've seen a number of Johnny Depp movies, and this Johnny Depp and Amber Heard story somehow drew me in and brought me down a rabbit hole. Not so much for what happened. Obviously, they live a different entitled lifestyle with yachts, jet setting, and drugs. And they had a very passionate relationship. But for the trial that's going on, I stumbled upon a video of a panel of expert body language interpreters. They are retired CIA people, retired prosecutors, law enforcement personnel who have interviewed thousands of people. And they share their expertise on what's going on when somebody takes a stand based on all their gestures and everything about their performance. And that's another factor too. We have two actors here. How much of it is acting and how much is the truth? A little timeline on this relationship. 2009, they met on the set of Rum Diaries. 2011, they saw each other again during the promotional tour for said film. 2012, Johnny Depp and his wife and mother of two kids, Vanessa Paradise, parted ways, divorced. In 2014, after having dated for a short while, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard were engaged. 2015, they were married after 15 months. 2016, Heard filed for divorce after only 15 months of marriage. And a restraining order against Johnny Depp is taken out, claiming abuse under the influence of drugs and alcohol. August of 2016, an out-of-court settlement is reached where both of them make a statement saying that they had a very passionate relationship and it led to a lot of arguments and they're parting friends and everything's good. Johnny Depp paid her $7 million. And Heard pledged to donate that money to charity, which she has not done to this point. 2018, Amber Heard penned an op-ed piece for the Washington Post, December 2018, about the treatment of women in domestic abuse cases. She did not mention Johnny Depp by name, but it was pretty clear who she was referring to. That hurt Depp's career. He lost his prized role of the Pirates in the Caribbean. He probably won't appear in any more of those. That was a very lucrative source of income for him, that movie series. So he filed a suit against her for $50 million. And she in turn filed a countersuit for $100 million. In 2020, Johnny Depp sued the publisher of The Sun for libel in the UK. A 2018 article had claimed he was violent against Heard. He lost, and while on the stand, Heard claimed that he had tried to kill her several times. So that's the background to the trial that's going on. Now, these gentlemen on the panel, it's 4 men, describe all the things that are going on during the testimony. And first up, the prosecutor gives the defendant a bunch of background questions to establish a baseline temperament. You want to see how the person answers simple questions truthfully. They asked her about growing up, what high school she went to, and she described how she had a scholarship, she went to Catholic schools on the rich side of town, growing up blue collar. And from these baseline gestures and her personality, we can see changes later when the questions get tougher, which may indicate deception or trauma. Now, these 4 experts made a point several times of saying they're not on either side. They're simply evaluating what they see based on what they know about people's mannerisms. We call them gestures. When you use your hand to describe something, they call them illustrators. And the more you make, and when you're making them, as you tell your story, that can be an indication of honesty. When they stop, that can be a sign of deception. Again, we're looking for departures from the baseline. Amber Heard changes tense a lot. She goes from speaking in the past to the present, the past perfect, back and forth as she's describing these incidents that happened. And also pronoun shifts. Those are all a sign of deception. Hesitations, where she seems to be remembering a rehearsed story. She made a point of looking over to the jury several times, trying to make eye contact with as many as possible. She's playing to them, and she knows they're going to determine her fate in this trial. There were a lot of overplayed facial expressions, really wild gestures. That can be a sign of deception. They talked about other terms, eyebrow flashes for emphasis, a chin boss, indicating shame or grief. I'm not sure what that is. At one point, she pulled out a handkerchief and was trying to wipe away tears that were non-existent. And I thought to myself, there's a person trying to cry who can't. Really weird. And the last one I'll share with you is fading facts. As you're telling a story, you decrease in volume toward the end of the sentence. You don't really finish it strong. It indicates a lack of conviction and deception. In conclusion, I hope you don't fall down the same rabbit hole. If you have or have an interest, I can send you a link to this 2+ hour video I watched, and you can decide for yourself who's telling the truth. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Len. Our third and final speaker this morning will be Margot Bittner, evaluated by Kate Orr. Kate.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. As far as my favorite bar, I'll talk about that later during my evaluation portion. Fellow Toastmasters and our honored guests, Mike and John, I will be evaluating Margot today. She is working in the presentation mastery path, Madam Timer, 5 to 7 minutes, the traditional time. She's working on level 3 project, persuasive speaking. Mr. Toastmaster, would you like to do the introduction and speech?
I can do that. Thank you.
Speech. Would you like to give the speech? No, it's Margot's speech. I meant to say title, obviously. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Kate. Fellow Toastmasters, Margot has been involved with the Niagara Wine Trail since 2004. She has served as treasurer, secretary, and president. However, the majority of her time has been spent chairing the marketing committee. On Tuesday night, she spoke at the Niagara County Legislature meeting to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the official formation of the Niagara Wine Trail. As a result of that presentation, she hopes she persuaded the legislators who have not visited a Niagara Wine Trail winery to do so. Let's welcome Margot with cheers to 20 years. Margot Bittner, cheers to 20 years.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I appreciate it. And I also wanted to thank the legislature for recognizing us for this milestone. Let me start with a brief history of the Niagara Wine Trail. The first winery on the wine trail opened on Mother's Day, of all days, of 1999. That was Niagara Landing, known then as Cambria Wine Cellars. Soon Warm Lake opened, and those two wineries realized there had to be a better way to let people know about us. It turns out New York State had a program of wine trails. So they convinced Assemblywoman Francine Del Monte and Senator George Maziarz to carry our banner to the state legislature. And in May of 2002, the Niagara Wine Trail was formed. The very first wine trail started at the intersection of Route 104 and Niagara Falls Boulevard, traveled all the way up 425 to Route 104. That was the original wine trail, just one little piece of spaghetti with 2 wineries. In 2004, all of a sudden, we jumped to 5 wineries. Between July and August, 3 of us opened. So we extended that wine trail all the way down 104 to the Orleans County line. Now, what is the goal of the Niagara Wine Trail? It is basically promotion. Our goal is to make sure that people know we're here and to get people out onto our wine trail. So we have a map that we give out. It used to be a big brochure, but given COVID, it's now a 1-page map that people can fold and put in their pocket. We did a Vino Visa, a passport that you had an entire year to visit all of the wineries. Now we have a wine pass that is good for shorter periods of time, a little more cost effective. And again, it encourages people to come out over time to visit all of our wineries. How many wineries, you might wonder? There are now 14 of us officially on the wine trail. We want people to know not only that we have events as a wine trail, but individual wineries. So one of our goals is to support and help each other. Now you might wonder what kind of events we do that encourage people to come and try us out. Because although we are open year round, we do want everyone to come for at least one of those events to experience everybody that they can. So we used to have an event during January that was a Mardi Gras event, and we gave out beads and we had a good time and people imbibed a lot on it. And it got to be a party atmosphere. Wasn't quite what we wanted, so we changed it into a winter cruise event, and we actually gave away a cruise one year. For all 18 years I've been open, we've done Be Mine with Wine. It used to be a chocolate event. Now, visiting all the wineries and getting 14 kinds of chocolate was a bit much. So now it's sweets for your sweetie. Now, when you hear St. Patrick's Day, I know you probably think beer, but we did an event called Lucky Charms. We all took a white wine and dyed it green and gave out Lucky Charms. The imbibing was quite hefty that weekend as well. Now in March, we actually do Vino at Casino. Instead of having everybody go to the wineries, we go to the casino in Batavia. Taste of the Trail is one of our wine and food pairing events. It's absolutely wonderful to have people come out and try a food and a wine and learn about pairing. We used to pick a course and we all did the same course. Now it's more of a progressive dinner. The Wine Trail Blossoms was in May. It celebrated not only the fact that Niagara Landing opened, but that the wine trail had grown. And we used to feature whichever winery was the newest. Wine and cheese in June is perfect for Dairy Month. However, we've changed that event. This year, there's going to be a charcuterie event. We are having smoked meat, somebody else is having cheese, somebody else has olives. And as part of it, you're going to get a beautiful board. We worked with different organizations to do music events, mostly Destination Niagara. We had hot nights, cool whites. So we all served white wine. And we also in July, when it's nice and warm, do Niagara Uncorked. Everybody goes to Lewiston. Now, Dave, I don't know if you know this, but we have a brand new event coming up in August. We're calling it the Touchdown, and we are partnering with Buffalo Bills alumni to come and visit all of our wineries and do a Buffalo Bills cheer 'em on event. So I hope everyone can come out for this new event. The Harvest Fest in September, again, focuses on wine and food pairing. And everybody's favorite event, Halloween, takes place in October. And I know Mike is so disappointed that we are not continuing that event, but with COVID, we no longer can. The first year we had that event, we had 100 people and thought we were really doing something. However, right now, when we had it the last time, we had 3,500 tickets sold. That will not be taking place. Share the Bounty is when people come in and give us a canned good or a donation instead of paying a tasting fee. And the Holiday Happening is a holiday related gift. This fall, we're also having our 20th anniversary gala, and we hope everybody here can come and join us. So before I conclude, because it is a winery, I would like to propose a toast to the natural beauty and wonders that give us the perfect agricultural climate, to the inspiration from a group of people who allow us to present wines in new and different ways, to the agricultural organizations who support our vision and help us reach it, Cornell University, Farm Bureau, Cooperative Extension, to the greater community that supports us, from Destination Niagara and the other tourist locations to hotels, restaurants, and liquor stores, and to the awards and honors that so many of us have won with our wines that have put this region on the map. So as you all know, as Toastmasters, I did my usual thing: natural beauty, inspiration, agriculture, Greater Niagara awards to Niagara Wine Trail, the greatest wine region in the world. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Margot. Sylvia, Madam Timer, can we have a timer's report, please?
Yes, you've made. Jill, 5.50. Len went over 7.4. And Margot, 6.16. 2 qualified, Jill and Margot.
Thank you, Sylvia. So there you have it, fellow Toastmasters. Please cast your vote for either Jill or Margot. As I stated in my introduction, there are many different types of bars, but as a category of bars, I think my favorite one has to be the beach bar. And there's nothing better for the soul after a long winter in Western New York to take a vacation, maybe down to Florida or somewhere else, say February, March, and set up at a beach bar and throw a few cold ones back. It is definitely an enjoyable thing. But during the summer, as I've shared previously with the club, my wife and I were fortunate enough to have a cottage down at Sunset Bay, which is a beach community. There are several bars there, which make it fun. There's Sportsman, which is a little bit more like the dive bar type variety, but I have a soft spot for it because the very first night we moved in, we went there for wings and a few beers, so that's fun. But on the beach itself, you have Cabana Sam's and the Sunset Bay Beach Club. Technically, they're separate, same owners. The beach club is more for the younger crowd. Cabana Sam's is for more the middle-aged crowd, such as myself, but it is the quintessential beach bar. And here's the thing, like David Jones indicated, generally speaking, we'll have the drinks at the cottage because we typically have a lot of guests and we're usually pretty well stocked, but it's always nice to have those bars available. They have really good happy hour at Cabana Sam's, 2 to 4 on Saturday and Sunday. And one thing that drove me absolutely bananas during the height of COVID was that you couldn't have happy hour. And the bars were so restrictive with the, Cuomo chips that you had to buy and things like that. And it drove me absolutely crazy. But one thing at Cabana Sam's that is a lot of fun, their end of season boat burning is a hell of a good time. All right, fellow Toastmasters, let's move on to the evaluation portion of the meeting. Our first evaluator this morning will be Carol Ann Halstead. Carol.
I have the pleasure of evaluating Jill this morning. Jill always demonstrates a pleasant demeanor. Her speech was very smooth. Any hesitations she had were not, she didn't use the filler words it was just short hesitations. And you could tell how much AM Lockport means to her. You could see and feel the emotion. The one thing that I noticed for improvement, although maybe I missed it a little, she did seem to be looking around the room, but I'm not sure how much she was looking at the Zoom audience. And for improvement, although her speech was very smooth and didn't reflect it, she made us aware that she started preparing it last evening. And the advice I would give just to avoid stress is to pick your topic. I know a lot of weeks it gets to Tuesday and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I think I better get going. But we're just, we were very glad to hear a little about her life and how this organization, she made it very clear that this is so important to her. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Carol. Our second evaluator this morning is David Jones. David.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. And Madam Timer, before you start, I just wanted to kind of ride on Jill's coattails. A few weeks ago, I mentioned that I'm going to become a division director in July over 23 clubs. I'm also going to become president of my Advanced Toastmasters Club. And when we're talking about my home club of Queen City, people call me either it's David's Club or I'm the Godfather, just because I'm always making things happen. We became presidential last month. We were the first one in the district out of 110 clubs to be presidential. And people just think I'm kind of a genius when it comes to Toastmasters, but a majority of it I've learned here at AM Lockport. And I take those learnings and put them into clubs here in North Carolina. And so you all make me look really good is the moral of the story. So I appreciate being a part of the AM Lockport as well. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and start my evaluation. Now, Lynn, I enjoyed your speech. In the beginning, it was called Body Language. And I thought it was going to be you doing body language. So I started watching your hand gestures in the very beginning. And you did have good body language, good hand movement. And as you were telling the story, you were pausing. And the pausing made me a little uncomfortable because of the subject matter. I wasn't sure where you were going to go based on the stories that I've seen. I'm like you, I don't really follow it. And if it's a Kardashian, I'm turning it off. But this story is compelling. And your pauses and your meaners, or your meaners. Yeah, meaners is my word of the day for the grammarian. Really made the story exciting. Now, your project was about research, and your research was very good on this subject. Usually we just talk about something that we like, but you'd actually had a timeline of their marriage or their relationship and how they both got together. And part of your research was in education. I thought their divorce was recent, that's why they're going through it, but you indicated, I believe around 2017, they got divorced, and this has just been going on for year after year after year. Therefore, your research was compelling, and it was, you accomplished your goal as the Pathway Project. Your pace was good. Oh, you had very calm demeanor. I know I wrote it down. And your pace was good. Overall, great speech. And your storytelling. Whenever we do a research or education, the speech tends to be like a lecture. It's a little, it's not as exciting as it should be. It's just, giving facts, but yours was storytelling. It was, you painted a detailed picture of what was happening in the courtroom. We could actually see her looking at the jury or talking to different people about, her gestures and stuff. So it was a great story. Room for improvement. And it's just me, I tend to be a little anal, but I noticed you had a pen in your hand the entire time. And it was, for me, it was a little distracting. I was like, is he gonna write something down or do something? But the entire speech, you had a pen in your hand. That was just an observation for me. To challenge yourself, and I don't know if you actually can do it in your club, because our club, we have a smaller podium, and I noticed you have the microphone and the different things on there. But I like when people come up to the podium in our club and just pick it up and move it out of the way. It kind of shows authority, and they start their speech, and they're from behind the podium, they can start walking around and commanding the stage more. So that would be my only thing, but I don't know if you can actually do that there. my suggestion would be just to get out from behind the podium. And other than that, I enjoyed your speech, and back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, David. Our third and final evaluator this morning will be Kate Orr. Kate.
Let me just demonstrate that. I'm not sure if that works very well. Often I like to use our lectern. I have to say lectern, David. I don't know, that's a North Carolina thing. No, it's apparently if you stand on it, then it's a podium because poda, Latin or Greek, probably Latin is feet. So if you stand on it, it's a podium. But if it's something like this or the foldable one we used to use at Tom's Diner, it's a lectern because we're speaking at it or lecturing at it. Please don't time me for that. And wait, because of course, also, as much as I have favorite bars, I like John, our guest, I suppose I'm more equal opportunity. I have enjoyed many bars, I have enjoyed many drinks, but I have enjoyed making many drinks for our guests. I've been a bartender since I was 19, and I just can't get away from it. I started at Willowbrook Golf Course near here, and even tonight, come on out to Calhoun's Pub because I can't say no. And they have their volleyball league, 40 years going strong. Started last night. I played volleyball, and the owner's a good friend, and she said, "Kate, can you just come for a couple hours tomorrow night? It's going to be very busy." It's hard to say no when I enjoy them very much, and they're a great place. So come out to Calhoun's Pub on Wednesdays and Thursdays for volleyball. But in any case, I'll talk about my favorite time briefly. Don't time me, I promise. Briefly, I'll tell you about my favorite bartending experience ever, which was pretty awesome. When I was working at Spring Lake Winery some years ago, we hosted the most extravagant wedding that I think I'd ever seen. I was the tasting room manager and the wedding coordinator, but they hired a wedding coordinator from New York City, so I didn't have to do any of that. This would have been the time that one of the Buffalo Bills married one of the Buffalo Jills. It was fantastic. They brought in flowers from Texas. They flew in folks from all over the place. And one of the Buffalo Bills friends happens to be a distributor for Jim Beam. Now, this man's gift to the couple was a whiskey tasting. He just needed a bartender, but he had all these beautiful $500 and $1,000 bottles that he needed someone to be pouring. And so I had a beautiful setup with barrels and candles outdoors in July with these beautiful whiskeys that I got to sample if there were leftovers. That was my most favorite ever. However, let's now start the timing and get to, most importantly, thank you, David, thank you. No, most importantly, this is about Margot. Margot, it was so clear, so engaging, so interesting. Your task was to persuade, and I am certain you persuaded even some of those staunchest politicians that still, after 2 decades, may not have set foot into any of our beautiful wineries. I would hope that they'd come visit you. Personally, you connect to your audience, you're informative, you took us on a journey of the last 20 years and the dozens of wineries in this area and those member wineries. You gave us so many details. It was so well organized. It was chronological, in order from the beginning until now. Great pacing and gestures on camera. You have so many tools in your toolbox, and we've all seen that. For our guests, it is challenging to find suggestions. Evaluating is probably one of the toughest jobs for us in Toastmasters, but that is why we're all here, right? And so even though Margot, who has been a Toastmaster for a long time, is amazing, we're still looking for tips. I can't think of very many. It's challenging when she's so good, but here we are to improve. Maybe I would suggest, I did notice you were looking up periodically. I'm guessing maybe there were notes above, but maybe not, because you know this information. Maybe it was just a way of collecting your thoughts. Maybe try to rein that in. Being on Zoom, we can see it easier. But I thought really overall, I don't think everybody would notice that. I absolutely loved your toast to finish it up. I would challenge you that you should literally spell it out, that you are spelling out something, because that was subtle that you spelled out the word Niagara, even for those of us who know that you use that as a as a kind of an engaging tool. You spell out things frequently. We know it. You've done it so many times, you know it. But I'm pretty certain guests or maybe a new audience like the legislature wouldn't really literally realize that you spelled out N. I don't remember the words you used, but maybe do that. N, I, inspiring, A, amazing, something again, because I've heard you do it that way and it really sells it. So awesome job. I can't wait to hear you. Of course, again, thank you very much, Margot, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Kate. I'd just like to share with the club that when it comes to imbibing, I've long had a sense that Kate might be what we would say an enthusiast. And here's why. Because I remember a speech that Edna Stubbs gave where a bottle of Yingling was used as a prop. At the conclusion of that speech, Edna looked to dispose of that partial bottle of Yingling, and I thought Kate was going to jump out of her skin to save that what was remaining of that bottle of beer. We can't possibly waste any holy water. So, Kate, nice job with your evaluation. Madam Timer, Sylvia, can you give us a final timers report, please?
Yes, I can. So here's the final of times. Everyone qualified. Carol Ann, 1.50. David, 2.57. Kate, 2.26. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. So fellow Toastmasters, please cast your vote for Carol, David, or Kate. At this point, given the time, I will forego any additional filler information and turn control of the meeting over to our general evaluator, Mike Licata. Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Once again, good morning, fellow Toastmasters and our guests. For our guests, we had many strong evaluators this morning that all used the more traditional sandwich approach. Sandwich approach is you start off with the positive of the speech. The meat of the sandwich is a lot of the feedback and the ways they can improve the speech. And then we always try to finish the evaluations here at AM Lockport with improvements and all the more positives as they go forward to the next part of the speech. And to our individual evaluators, I thought Carol Ann did a really good job. I think she did. She's getting used to being an evaluator, even as a newer Toastmaster. It's always hard to adjust to learning how to evaluate people because it's not a normal situation for most of us because we're not used to giving feedback in a positive manner. Usually it's in the regular world, it is a little bit different. And the other thing I'd like to say to David is don't apologize for being nitpicky. We always try to find something, even when our strongest speakers are speaking, it's important to find some different ways that each of our speakers can make adjustments. And I want to thank Kate because she stole the rest of my thunder with her evaluation this morning. So I will hope that if I do show up tonight, Morgan will let me start a tab on your tip jar. But I probably don't because I have things to do this evening. And my last dig will be at our Toastmasters after yesterday's Mets game. I'm sure that you will find a bar as soon as you're done with work because Scherzer gets hurt. You guys are enjoy that first month and a half of the season. But with that,
Don't worry. DeGrom is coming back.
What is he hurt? What's he got? A couple more months though, doesn't he? Okay,
July 1.
Let's not derail it. I will turn it back over for reports. Thank you, Mr. Toastman.
All right, thank you, Michael. All right, it's time for reports. I would like to call our master, Marty.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster Mark. Starting at the top of the list. Sylvia had an Tracy had an Jason had a few ahs and 2 ums. David Jones had an Carol Ann had an and 2 ahs. I feel everyone is improving with their ahs and their uses of the pregnant pauses. Back to you, Mark, Mr. Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you, Marty. Our grammarian, Thomas Heldwine. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Grammarian, job I always dread, but me getting more good at it. So we had one person correct themselves, meaner when they meant demeanor. I think one of the things I saw this during this meeting was people correcting themselves. They were going down a path, they would say yada, 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 4, and then they'd stop themselves and correct it to 2, blah, blah, blah. And another example was someone said blah, 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 of, with, and they like corrected their grammar, thinking through what they were going to say. So I think we're on autopilot where we're doing the autocorrect like in Word or when you're writing an email. And for Jason, you said you used a contraction, which is actually when you're learning a foreign language is actually very impressive. You said, I don't drink alcohol anymore. The correction would be, I won't drink alcohol anymore, allowing for a future tense to occur. And my favorite phrase of the day was from Jill. She was roughly criticized. So thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Thomas. Our tech and gesture master, Beth.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I was very impressed, first of all, with the tech that we had a little problem with the Zoom crowd and they kind of started not matching up the sound and the picture, and you just took it away and it was like you canceled it, came back on, didn't miss a word. I don't know exactly how that happened, what happened, because tech is not my thing, but I was very impressed. You did a wonderful job. For our speakers, Jill, Len, Margot, gestures were great. All of you really know your stuff, you know enough to talk with your hands. I particularly liked Len's mimicking Heard, where he looked to the jury to impress the jury. You became Heard in that moment. Obviously, you're much more handsome than Heard is, but I really loved all of our speeches today. Really interesting. Steve, you always come up and you take over this lectern. I've always been impressed with that. Really good job. Let's see, the gentleman that's new, John, maybe is on Zoom. I love that you put the word of the day and the drink as your background. Boy, do you have tech down. I wouldn't have been able to do that, I'm quite sure. I do have one piece of advice for Margot, and I noticed Kate said it a little bit, that Margot was kind of looking up, which meant she wasn't looking at the camera as much as I'm used to from her. So just a little bit of advice there. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Beth. Our quiz master, Jackie Kenny. Jackie.
Just a few questions in the interest of brevity. I found Jill named herself as the longest running guest. I thought that was great and we all enjoyed it. How many tickets were sold for the most recent October Wine Trail event? Does anyone remember?
3,500.
Thank you. And Sylvia mentioned something that all of us have known for a long time. What do we do when the bars close in Niagara County? And a tradition we might want to try adopting here, Mark told us about. New York City bars do something called the amazing. I can't believe that hasn't moved here. All right, everyone, have a good week. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Last but not least, our word master, Mike Florio. Mike.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, thank you very much. Now, John, with the word imbibe on there, John, you've done this before, so you're a guest, but I believe that you've been a Toastmaster before, so kudos to you. Thank you very much for putting the word of the day, imbibe, on display. And everyone, I think, soaked up the word imbibed and used it as well as they could. I heard Margot use it twice, Dave, Len, Jill, Carol Ann, Mark, and quite a few more. So the word did very well today, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mike. And that does it for our reports. At this point, our president, Thomas, would you like to come up to the lectern and we can announce the awards, please?
I'm running around, running errands, exactly. I'm trying to get everything done. If someone has the winners for today, can you bring those?
I can announce them if you like.
Oh. Go ahead and hit that first, please.
Okay, so our best table topic speaker this morning is our guest, John. Very nice, John. It's almost as if you anticipated winning that vote. Our best evaluator this morning is Kate Orr. Kate. And our best speaker this morning is Jill Roaring. Jill, congratulations. All right, Mr. President, back to you.
Well, thank you. Eating Margot, that's a feather in my cap.
Margot never wins unless it's by default. They don't vote for me anymore. That's Toastmaster rule.
Our winning number is 306. 306.
Sorry,
It's Margot.
It's
It's Margot.
Hey, Mike, you want to bring it to me tomorrow at work?
Oh, who am I handing it to? Okay. Okay. Put it right here. Yes, our guests. Yes. We'll start here in the room. And this should be Mike Hayes. Mike Hayes.
So I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to be here this morning. It's been fun. I'm looking forward to continuing to come. Next week, I won't be in person. I'm traveling, so I will be on Zoom.
Our table topics winner today. John is online. I said table topics winner. I'm leading up to it. I have 30 seconds left. John, how'd you enjoy the meeting today?
Well, I thank you one and all, and I'll put a thank out to Avis for letting me know about this club. I enjoyed how smoothly the laughter, drinks, and meeting flowed. And I may show up again. It depends if my wife wakes me up again. I usually sleep until like 8 a.m., but she gets up early to go to work, and I woke up, and so I am able to attend. My growth point for the club For the guests, it'd be great to have an agenda to find out what's going on. But thank you for the club and the meeting, and had a great time.
Thank you, John. And John, by the way, you finished with a flourish. I love the background. Please send my regards to Bob and Doug McKenzie, if you would.
Exactly. The Great White North. Great comedy skit. Open it up real quick for any announcements. If anyone has any for the floor for next week, our Toastmasters Marty.
Do you have themes
Have a
or?
theme. Yeah.
Mr. President, I chose the theme Memorial Day. General.
Memorial Day.
Next week is on Toastmaster today.
All right, thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
Yeah, I repeated Memorial Day so that they heard it on live. Thank you, Katie.
It works for me.
Katie, you should run for president sometime here. With that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Bye.